going into chapter 6, we've got carbohydrates, aka carbs, the devil. Right, with carbohydrates are the body's main source of energy. It's the main source of fuel, and the body needs carbohydrates. And when it comes towards like our nutrition and for us to feel at its best, we need to have carbohydrates because they get stored in his muscles and his liver, and it gets used at a later time. So carbs can be actually categorized in refined or unrefined carbohydrates. So this is where the confusion comes along, because a lot of people who do not know anything about nutrition just say carbs are the devil, you should not have them. Even like companies such as like Weight Watchers they say that they're a sin. And it's like, you need carbohydrates just like your car needs petrol to move and actually have fuel to do whatever it needs to do. But say for instance, with your car, if you needed to drive from Sheffield to Edinburgh and you only put 10 miles of fuel in it, it doesn't matter how good the car is, how powerful it is, it will not get to Edinburgh. So it's the same for yourself. If you don't give yourself the right amount of carbohydrates, you are not going to perform at your best level. It's only when we go overboard and we start to eat too many, and it's about understanding and listening to your body, that's where we start to step out of line. So with that being said, we do actually need to have days where we have higher carb days and lower carb days, but that's for a later day. But the point of this video is to help you to understand and for you to take up as much information about refined and unrefined carbohydrates. So refined carbohydrates are the carbs what we are looking to avoid. Again, tying in with the 80 to 20% rule, sometimes it is pretty much impossible to avoid, but at least a little bit of something is better than no. But 80% of our diet needs to be about unrefined carbohydrates. But anyway, back onto the topic of refined carbohydrates. They're basically being manufactured and they just lack so much nutritional value, even though they might taste very nice and it's like, oh, this is just so good. The body, it just causes more harm than good. Like usually we eat with refined carbohydrates, we may find that like the calorie per gram is just so high, there's a lot of sugar, and that the body just literally, it just leads to such bad things such as like obesity, diabetes, heart diseases, and cardiovascular diseases. And it's just crazy that you can eat yourself to your death ever so slowly from cheap options. The majority of refined carbohydrates contain sugar. They will spike your blood sugar up, and they will result in highly addictive. They will be very highly addictive, and it can be very hard to wean yourself off if you've been doing it for a couple of years. So just be careful and be mindful of what you're eating. So a prime example of this could be when you go to Costa Coffee, you get a Frappa Kappa Cappuccino, and then you have like a little tiny brownie, which is only like this size. But that brownie, even though it's this size, could be 500 calories. And you might think, it won't. But next time you go into like any places like that, you've got to look at that calorie. So you can look at the name easy, but we don't look at the other side where it tells you the calories. Because it's always so small, they don't want you to know that because it's their marketing scheme. So when it comes towards like these refined carbohydrates, we've got to be careful of like how much of these brownies and like how much we're consuming, because if you're doing that every day, you're adding on an extra 5 times 7, 3,500 calories just from brownies a week, which is absolutely absurd. Anyway, so when it comes towards unrefined carbohydrates, these are carbohydrates in their natural form, in their organic state, and they contain fiber, vitamins and minerals, which are literally essential for the body to be healthy. And these are what we need to start to eat more of. I've just remembered that I have not gone through the examples of refined carbohydrates, so this may be a bit confusing. So going back to the actual refined carbohydrates, so we've got examples such as like white bread, white pasta, packaged cereals, white flour, cakes, biscuits, sweets, fruit, juice, fizzy pop, crisps, dough of all types, tortillas, sauces, ketchup, barbecue, etc., white rice, and milk substitutes. Whew, those are, see what I mean? It's like we might be eating these and we're like, oh my god, I eat these. These are the examples of refined carbohydrates. It's just mad because it's just what we get pushed onto us without even realizing. Anyway, going back to unrefined carbohydrate examples, so we've got things such as like sweet potatoes, oats, quinoa, beans, lentils, buckwheat, fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grain bread, pasta, and brown rice. It's important to understand that even though whole grains such as cereal and whole grain bread do provide slightly more nutritional benefits than processed grains such as white bread, again, when carbohydrates is such a complicated topic to speak about, but it's very important for us to speak about it anyway so that you get a better understanding. Because if you think about it, if we eliminated all carbs, we've got no energy. If we eliminated just one thing, so one refined carbohydrates, you could be saving yourself a lot of calories so that you can eat somewhere else. But it's also understanding that like you need to have carbs to give yourself energy to feel good, to then perform, to then be able to be the best version of yourself. So this is why this chapter is very important. I know it's confusing, so rewind, go back through it and digest it. But it's all about making sure that you know why you need to eat certain types of carbohydrates, what value it gives you. Because every time you eat, you're depositing health into you. And it's like you've got to choose your deposits, because each deposit where you give yourself, you get a better return on investment, and it helps you to feel better. It helps your asset to grow, which is yourself. So yeah, when it comes towards like carbohydrates as well, there is gluten. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, and it's also found in barley and rye, and it's a substance that causes problems such as digestive disorders for many people. And there's a lot of people who have benefited from removing gluten from the diet. So you've probably heard of people who are celiacs or have to have gluten-free, and this is what comes from certain types of gluten and carbohydrates. So carbohydrates will actually be the bulk of your diet. We do aim to consume between 40 to 60% of the total calories from carbohydrates. Again, this depends on like the individual, who you are, what you're doing and why. But you don't want to like just cut them out. The main thing what I want to address is cutting them out, because it's stupid. You're cutting your energy out. You need to like have carbohydrates to have fuel to perform, to feel better. But again, when we're eating around intense activities, having carbohydrates is going to help you to recover, to regain your energy, and then also help you to feel good. So carbohydrates, done and dusted. Damn.